So when it comes to the hips, there are two main areas in yoga. One is the inner hips and two, the outer hips. Now we always focus on the inner hips first before we get to the outer hips, and I'll explain a little bit more about that, or the reason why that is, later on. So today is going to be about a 30-minute practice dedicated to releasing and opening the inner hips and learning the skillful actions to get there. In the section below, I'm going to leave my full weekly live stream class schedule. I teach several classes a week, all different lengths, even going all the way up to 2 hours. I would absolutely love you to join me on one of my live classes so you can get that personal connection, and I can give you as much feedback and help as you need. And if you'd like to be on my email list, leave your email address in the comments section below and I will add you to my list. So let's get started with the inner hip focus today. You're going to need a blanket and 2 blocks. All right, so to start off, you're going to need a blanket to sit on. Now, as you sit on your blanket, as you fold your blanket, what you want to make sure of is that it's folded high enough. If you sit just on the floor with a very thin blanket, it's not going to do anything, okay? So what we want is to elevate the hips enough that it creates this forward tilting of the pelvis. So I'm going to sit on my blanket and I'm going to show you the side view so that you can see what I mean. Now, as we start, we're going to open the legs out to the side. Now, when I'm sitting on the edge of my blanket, and again, you can fold it according to, your hips, right? So if you have tighter hips, then you're going to want to fold and be on a thicker fold. If your hips feel pretty open, then maybe you do a thinner fold, okay? Now, once you're on the edge of the blanket, it's like you want to sit as if you're almost falling off that blanket. And then you're going to bring your fingertips behind you. Now, before we look at the action of the legs and the hips, the first thing here is just to know how high you should be sitting on your blanket. So when you're sitting here, what should be available now is that you're able to actually tilt the pelvis more forward, and then finding more of a concave curve in your lumbar spine, right? So sitting up higher makes that easier. When you sit straight down on the mat, which I'm going to show you now so you can see the difference, when you sit straight down on the mat, often this is what happens, okay? So now everything's collapsing. My lower back is collapsed and I'm simply tightening everything here. So if I then try to come forward, let's say from here, all I'm going to do is come forward from bending or rounding or hunching in my upper back, but I'm actually not going to get anywhere into my hips, okay? So just that little quick lesson on sitting up on a blanket. So now, once you've figured out the height of your blanket, you're going to open your legs out to the side here. All right, so again, today the focus is the inner hips. So the inner hips, or also known as the groin area, or the hip creases, the action to get into our inner hips is internal rotation. So what I want you to do is you take your legs out to the side. I want you to take both hands to the top of one thigh, and with a pretty firm grip, do a big manual inward rotation of your thigh, and then do the other one. So you're moving the flesh, the muscle, and the bone all in the same direction. Okay, now keep pressing your inner hips down, and like we did a moment ago where you were sitting on the blanket, put your hands behind you. Press down into the fingertips and be mindful not to lean on your hands. So it's not this, right, where I'm leaning back. You want to have your fingertips as close to your pelvis as possible and press down more to sit up. Now flex the ankles and imagine that you're standing on your mat. You're standing on your feet. So spread the toes and begin to engage the muscles in your legs, starting from your feet all the way up into your thighs. You're sitting on the edge of your blanket, and then you're going to use this muscular engagement of your thighs, especially, to keep turning the tops of your thighs in, pressing your inner heels down and your inner hips or your groin down, lifting up through your spine. Now notice, maybe close your eyes here and begin to feel. Notice how when you turn the top of your thighs in, your pelvis starts to tilt forward more. So you're actually sitting more in front of your sit bones rather than directly on them. And then your lower back starts to go in more to a concave curve. So that's the natural curve of your lower spine, is the concave curve, the lumbar curve. Now we're on the right track, right? So now we're releasing this area, the groin, that tends to get very tight and stuck when we don't pay attention to it. And then when we try to open the outer hips without focusing on the inner hips first, we can't. It's physically impossible because we're still stuck there in the inner hips. So keep working that action of turning your thighs in. Now you can stay up like this if this is enough, or bring your fingertips forward. Keep turning the top of your thighs in and begin to come forward from here. Now think about cobra pose in your upper back. So open your chest and gaze slightly more forward so that you're preventing yourself from rounding in your upper back or hunching in your upper back. Keep the legs firm and engaged for 3 more breaths here. And then slowly start to lift yourself back up. Good. Now hold on to the insides of your knees and bring your legs together. We're going to bring the soles of our feet together now. So Baddha Konasana. Now as you bring the soles of the feet together, you can keep them slightly further away so it's a little bit easier. And again, sit on the edge of your blanket and bring your fingertips behind you. So the key here to know, you guys, is that once we've learned the action, it's the same no matter what pose we're doing, right? Same action, different pose. So now, again, with your legs open here, start to feel this direction, or even visualize it in your mind, of inwardly rotating your thighs. You can even use your hands, which is helpful, to trace the direction. So even though the knees are open, we're actually turning our thighs in. This can be incredibly enlightening if you've never done it before. So keep pressing those inner thighs down. Fingertips behind you. Feel the pelvis start to tilt forward, even if it's just the tiniest little bit amount, it doesn't matter. And try to move your sit bones back towards the wall behind you. Now either stay up if this is already plenty, or now catch hold of your big toes. Now from the action of the hips, the inward rotation, so the top of the thighs turn in, the inner hips, the groin moves back, the sit bones move back, start to come forward from there. Think cobra pose in the upper back, so you're trying to avoid hunching or rounding in the upper back, and instead moving from your hips. Doesn't matter how far forward you come, that's not important here, right? As I always say in my classes, I teach actions, not yoga poses. So when we learn the skillful actions and we back off a little bit, then we can start to create tremendous freedom. But if we just push our way into a pose without learning skillful action, we might not feel it in the moment. Later on, that's how you injure yourself. So inhale and come up slowly. Bring your knees together and then come over to your hands and knees. Now I want you to grab your block here and place it on this medium width between the top of your inner thighs, like this, and then come to the hands and knees. Now make sure the block is right up at the top of your inner thighs, not in between your knees, because I want you to engage those adductor muscles at the top. So once you're on your hands and knees, just simply squeeze the block and feel the thigh muscles waking up here. Now, with your thighs engaged along the block here, start to push that block back towards the wall behind you. Now that is internal rotation. Feel the pelvis tilt forward and then arch your back looking forward. Now I want you to pause here and feel, as you push the block back, how the sit bones widen apart from each other. The sacrum widens apart. Now as you exhale, rounding the back, still squeeze the block, tuck your tailbone, tuck your chin into your chest. And then again, inward rotation, squeezing the block and pushing it back. Widen the sit bones behind you, widen your sacrum, your lumbar spine. Exhale, rounding the back. Let's do a few more like this with the breath, but keeping the focus on the thighs staying engaged around the block. Following the breath, let's do twice more here. All right, now we're going to keep the block. And the next time we're inwardly rotating the thighs, stay there. Now, walk your hands forward, stay on your knees, but walk your knees backwards a little bit. Make sure as you place your hands out there, your index fingers are pointing forward. So your hands are actually slightly turned out. Now press through the fingertips and the inner edges of your hands. And as you squeeze the block, push it back until you really feel you have this concave curve in your lower spine. And the top of your thighs are turning inward to push that block back. Now keep that going. Lift your knees and slowly come up to a bent knee, downward facing dog. Now as you get there, keep working from the top of the thighs. Pressing the block back. Lifting the sit bones as high up to the sky as you can. Maybe even feel the sit bones widening apart. Stay here and breathe for 3 slow breaths. Keep working, top of your thighs pressing back, lifting and broadening your sit bones. Now keeping that block, you're going to do little baby steps forward all the way up to the top of your mat. Bend your knees and lengthen your belly over your thighs. Make sure the block is still in a good place. You can always adjust it if you need. Now relax your head, relax your shoulders, relax your neck. All right, so we've got the knees bent. Bring your attention right to the top of your thighs again, where the block is. Now, all I want you to focus on here is turning the top of the thighs in. So squeeze the block. Press the block back with your inner thighs. So you're avoiding pushing your knees back right now. You're just pushing back from the top of the thighs. And see if you can begin to work towards straighter legs from there.
Top of the inner thighs press back first. And then feel how that allows the spine to release so much more freely. Inhale, lift your chest halfway. Keep squeezing the block and pressing it back. Bring your hands to your hips and come all the way up to stand. Good. Now let's keep the block. So again, adjust it, make sure it's in the right place, and we'll take one full Surya Namaskar A with the block there. So you can do little baby steps, right, as you step back to plank and step forward again. So bring your arms by your sides, squeeze the block, and feel not only the beginning of the action of inward rotation, but when you squeeze the block, do you feel your core muscles starting to wake up? It's like everything feels so much lighter and more free. So push your block back with your inner thighs and lengthen your tailbone down. Now inhale to sweep the arms out and up, big stretch. Exhale, fold over and down. As you're folding, push the block back to come down, lengthening your spine over your legs. Now inhale, lift up halfway. You can bend the knees here. Keep pushing the block back. Now step into plank pose. Little baby steps is fine. And pause, shoulders over the wrist. Now squeeze the block again and push it up. Turn your thighs in. Lengthen your tailbone and slowly bend the elbows to lower yourself all the way down. Untuck the toes. Draw the shoulders up and back and curl up to cobra pose, still squeezing the block and turning your thighs inward. Exhale, lower. And push back, downward facing dog, keeping the block between your thighs. Push the block back. Still with the knees bent, lift and broaden your sit bones. Keep the armpits lifting away from the mat as you push the block back, lengthening through your spine. And then little baby steps forward, all the way up to the top of the mat again. Hands on the shins, lift up and lengthen, pushing the block back. And exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep the arms out and come all the way up to stand. Exhale and release. Good. All right, let's take the block away and we'll do one more without the block. I want you to pretend like it's still there. So let's keep the feet slightly apart and pretend that you're squeezing that block there. Press the block back, so keep turning your thighs in, and then lengthen the tailbone down towards your heels. Inhale, sweep the arms out and up. Exhale, fold over and down. Inhale, lift the chest halfway and lengthen your spine. Exhale, step to plank pose. Now stay in plank and again turn the top of your thighs in and lengthen your tailbone. Slowly lower all the way down. Draw the shoulders back and curl up to cobra pose. Are your thighs still turning in here as you rise up? Exhale, lower all the way down. And press back. Downward facing dog. Now bend your knees as you get there. Press the top of your inner thighs back. Turning the top thighs in. Now work slowly towards straightening the legs, but do it from the top of your thighs rather than your knees. Try to resist pushing your knees back. Pretend the block is there, and that's where you're moving from, right at the groin, right at the inner hips. One more breath here. And then walk forward to your hands. Hands to the shins. Inhale, lift the chest and lengthen. Exhale and fold. Inhale, sweep your arms out and come all the way up to stand. Exhale and release the arms. All right, so we're going to take a wide stance now and turn our feet out 45 degrees. Okay, so in a moment you're going to bend your knees, and when you do, you want to make sure your kneecaps are tracking in line with your second toes. But before that, I want you to bring your hands to your hips and trace the direction of inward rotation in the top of your thighs. Now, inward rotation does a couple things, okay? It narrows the front. It narrows the top of the thighs in. And when it gets to the back, it widens in the back. It widens the sacrum. It widens the sit bones apart. It widens the glute muscles apart. So just visualize that in your mind's eye and in your body. Now we're going to start to bend the knees and sit down into horse stance. Now as you come down, keep turning your thighs in. Put your hands on the top of your thighs and move the groin, the inner hips back so it feels like you're sticking your butt out behind you. Let it feel like that today. So we can just give the attention to this inner hip action, and then next class we'll focus on the outer hips as well. Now feel the relationship between the inner edges of your feet and your inner hips, right? The inseams of your legs all the way up to your groin. Keep sitting down. Use your hands to push your thighs down. And then slowly come on back up. Okay, now turn the feet parallel. So same thing here, right? This is a very common pose that we do in practice, Prasarita Padottanasana, wide-legged forward fold. Now if we're not paying attention and actually moving from our inner hips, then we're going to just fold forward and round in our upper back. When we do that, we're not really being productive. So we could do that over and over again, year after year, and nothing's going to change. It's going to stay the same. And we end up reinforcing bad habits. Okay? So being willing to relearn things, maybe look at things or approach things from a slightly different perspective, can be so useful. Doesn't matter how long you've been practicing. Okay, so bring your hands to your hips again and do the same thing. Trace the direction of inward rotation. Moving the groin back. Now I'm going to come to the side so you can see what that looks like from the side here. So as I come forward, I start by moving as if I've got that block there, moving the imaginary block back. Turning the top of the thighs in, keeping the feet firmly rooted as I come down. Then place the fingertips down. You can use blocks under your hands if you need. Keep your arms straight and open your chest. Now make sure your hips are aligned with your ankles so that your hips are not swaying back behind your heels. Now keep the legs super firm, and again, turn the top of your thighs in. Feel the narrowing in the front and the widening in the back. Maybe put one of your hands on your lumbar spine and check, is it starting to go in more? Do you have more of a concave curve? Now, two options. You can either stay with this or keep folding deep from the inner hips and come all the way forward and down. Take 3 slow breaths here. Keep working the action at the top of the thighs, turning the thighs in, widening the sit bones apart, widening the sacrum. Inhale, come back up. Maybe you have your blocks there for your hands. Open your chest. Now keep the legs firm, bring your hands to your hips and come all the way up to stand. Heel, toe your feet back in. Good. All right. We'll take one more standing pose. Stand on your left foot and take your right ankle, right foot to your inner thigh for tree pose. Now, again here, put your hands on your hips. Trace the direction first of inward rotation with your hands, so that the inner hips, the groin, start to deepen and go back. You might even feel the top of your left thigh move back towards the back of the thigh. Now try to keep that and then lengthen your tailbone down to balance it out. Bring your hands together at your heart and then take the arms up or leave them as they are. Now again, for today, as we're working on inner hips, keep working on inward rotation. So if you're not used to it, it's going to feel like you're sticking your butt out. Okay, let it feel like that for now, and then next class, we'll balance it out with outward rotation. Often this first action of inward rotation is the thing, the piece that is missing for so many people in their practice. So bring the arms down and release the right foot. Good. Pause here. And shift your weight over towards the right foot. Grab your left ankle and place the foot to the inner thigh. Place your hands together at your heart. Now again, or actually bring them here like we did before, trace the direction of inward rotation. And move the groin back. Feel that right thigh move back in the hip socket. And then lengthen the tailbone down and bring your hands together at your heart. If you feel balanced, you can raise the arms up. And then again, keep working today on turning the top of your thighs in. Maybe you notice how the more you start to find this action, your spine actually starts to go up. You get more length in your spine from this action. And then bring the hands down and your left foot. Releasing it, shake the legs out. All right, so we're going to come back down and we'll take one more standing pose here. One more seated pose. So sit on your blanket. And we're going to cross the shins or stack the shins. So we'll start with the left shin first. Now as you place your left shin, place it so it's parallel to the top edge of your mat. And then carefully take the right ankle and either place the right ankle on top of the left knee, stacking your shins, or if that's too much, place the foot in front. Be super mindful of your knees here. You don't want anything to stress out your knees. So keep your ankles flexed, your feet firm and engaged. Now, the manual adjustment we did earlier, we're going to do it again. So take both hands to the top of the right thigh and turn the right thigh in. And then do the other leg. Turn the left thigh in. Use your hands, again, to trace the direction. So even though our legs are open, we're still turning the thighs in. This is where the freedom is, you guys. Releasing the inner hips literally unravels the spine. So I'm going to show you from the side here so you can see the difference. So now, once you've done your manual adjustment, place your fingertips on the mat behind you, just like you did before, and keep them close to you.
Press down and lift up through your spine. Now begin again to turn the tops of your thighs in. Deepening the groin down, deepening the inner hips down. Moving the sit bones back and apart and your lower back in more to a concave curve. Now if you can maintain this here, then you can do that and come forward. Even if it's the smallest amount, you're going to start to get more freedom in the long run than if you just came down like this. Okay, this is easy. Not so easy to move from the pelvis, to really move from deep in the inner hips. Draw the shoulders back, keep the chest open, and breathe here. Let's take 3 slow breaths. Think cobra pose in the upper back. Forward bend in the hips. Come up slowly and switch the cross. So take the left shin on top of the right. I'll turn myself around. Go very slowly as you place your legs, so you're not forcing your body. Now if it's too much to put the ankle on top, place it in front instead. Now bring your fingertips behind you, turning the top of your thighs in. Pressing the inner hips, the groin down, and lifting up through your spine. Stay up and just work on this. If this is enough for you, just work on this or start to come forward slowly. Slow enough that you can really pay attention to where you're moving from. The art of the practice is to be willing to slow down, be willing to feel more deeply these subtle places in the body, to slow the breath, to slow the mind down, and to sharpen our attention. So if we're rushing through the practice, we're missing all of that. Inhale, come on up slowly. Good, all right, so we're ready for Shavasana. So place your blanket there for your head. That feels good. And then come on down and lay on your back. Now, as you prepare yourself for Shavasana today, I want you to give yourself another manual adjustment of your thighs. So grab one thigh with both hands and turn the top of the thigh in. And then do the same thing on the other one. Turn the top of the thigh in. So you really feel the inner hips again, the groin releasing down. And then turn the palms up and close your eyes. Now when you turned your thighs in, what you may feel is more space underneath your lower back. And that's a good thing. We want to begin to create some more space and freedom there. As we find more freedom in our inner hips, then naturally our outer hips will be able to release, and you'll feel that in our next practice. Let the weight of your body release into the mat. Feel the soft breath moving in and out. Relax the muscles of your face. Soften your jaw. And relax your eyes. So your entire body feels like it's just melting into the mat. Now feel your body starting to awaken once again. And gently wiggle your fingers and toes. Slowly bend your knees and roll over to your right side and make your way back up to sit. Now as you come up to sit, take your cross-legged position and once more do a manual adjustment of your thighs, turning the top of each thigh in. As you do so, feel the inner hips, the groin moving down, and the weight sitting slightly more in front of your sit bones, rather than on them or even behind them, which is sometimes what happens. You might even put one hand on your lower spine and check to feel the lumbar curve, right? That concave curve going in. Now feel the lift up through your spine from that, all the way up through the crown of your head. Draw the hands together at your heart, lifting the heart as you bow your head down. Honoring your body, pausing to feel gratitude to your body. And then lift your head to honor each other. Namaste. Thanks so much, you guys, for practicing with me. So as I said, I'm going to leave my live stream class info down in the section below here. Please like and subscribe to my channel. You're going to get more and more updates, more and more classes. And if you want to be on my email list, just pop your email address in the comments section below and I'll add you to my list, okay? Have a beautiful day and I will see you next time. Namaste.